Avoid moving to Wesley Chapel, Florida, guys. That is, unless you can learn to handle the things that I'm about to go into in this video. Now, there are a few reasons not to move to Wesley Chapel, and those reasons have been given to me over the years by customers who ultimately decided to move to other areas, or from feedback from people who have moved to the area and then said, man, I wish I'd known about this before I moved here. So I want to put together this list to give you guys the information so that you don't make a mistake, basically. And some of these are a little bit subjective. Some of these you might look at and say, are you kidding me? But regardless, they do bother some people. Hi guys, and welcome to the channel. So if you're someone who's looking to find out more information about moving to the area or would like a list of properties, be sure to hit us up using the contact information below. Our team would love to help you, just like we help over 200 families every single year move to the area and make it home. All right, before we get started, I just want to give you a broad 30,000 foot overview of Wesley Chapel, in case you're not familiar with the area, or even if you are, it might tell you something you don't know. So Wesley Chapel is situated just north of Tampa, up along 275, which rolls into I-75. So it's about 25-30 minutes north of Tampa. And it's one of the areas that's seen rapid explosion over the last 10 years or so, really, where the population's grown, as well as the general footprint of Wesley Chapel itself. And it's really now considered as one of the best suburbs in Tampa Bay that you can move to. Now, the population now is about 65,000, which again, like I said, has risen considerably. But you have all of the great amenities there, such as shopping malls with high-end department stores, but also the discount kind of premium outlets as well. You have plenty of entertainment. There's tons of restaurants and breweries and things to do, like dueling pianos. There's axe throwing. There's Tiger Woods putt-putt course, which is there. So really a ton of entertainment there as well. But it's not all good. I mean, nowhere is. And so I want to go through some of the reasons that might make you want to avoid Wesley Chapel unless you can deal with them. So the first thing that might make you want to avoid Wesley Chapel is the wildlife and the bugs that are here. And for some people, this is just too much to handle. So let me go into just a few of them real quick. Now, the first one, of course, is because we are in Florida. You probably know already we have gators around here. So that freaks some people out. For sure, I've seen them on the golf courses when I've played. And anytime I drive around the area, even in built up areas in Tampa, if there's a body of standing water, like a lake or a pond or something, it's probably fairly safe to assume there's going to be a gator in there or very nearby to there. So if you're worried about the gators, please know that they're pretty prevalent here. I've seen quite a lot of them. I've sold houses where they are in the backyard in the lakes. So it's not a myth, it's not an urban legend. Gators are definitely a part of Florida life. Some of the other ones that we deal with are the palmetto bugs, which is basically just a cockroach. I don't think there's ever a house I've lived in Florida, no matter how much pest control I get in the property, where I don't have those in the home. So again, some people are really freaked out by that. And then on top of that, we have spiders as well. And I'm not talking about just the little teeny spiders. I'm talking about some pretty decent sized spiders. Now, I don't mind these bugs. I'm always the one in our house that kills them, but my wife is freaked out and threatens to burn the house down every time she finds one of these. So if you're that way inclined too, Florida's gonna be pretty anxiety inducing for you in some cases. And then let's talk about some of the other ones as well. So outside you have the mosquitoes and the no-see-ums. So if you have juicy skin like I do, you're gonna get bit to hell at certain times of the year. It's really unpleasant. And then finally, we have the love bugs twice a year. So they come around March time and then September time for about a month at a time in those two time frames. And they just will be attracted to the windshield on your car the second you start driving on any of the main roads. And they are all over the windshield, all over the front of the car. They are a real pain to try and clean off, and they actually eat at the paintwork if you don't clean them off, so you have to make sure you do that. We actually call it love bug season. They're that much of an inconvenience for people. So, just the bugs and the animals and the wildlife in general might be a reason that you want to stay away, and might be something that you need to know about before you decide to move to this area. And then the second reason you might want to avoid Wesley Chapel, or really Florida in general for that matter, is the weather. And I know you're thinking to yourself, well, that makes no sense because the weather actually is one of the reasons I'm thinking of moving to Florida. But let me explain it to you. Now, from November time through March, April, that's my favorite time of the year. The weather is just absolutely gorgeous. So you can get highs of like 70, 71 in January. The average low is like high 40s. We do get a couple of cold freezes and cold snaps where we get frost outside, but really the weather's gorgeous, and it's always fun turning on the news and seeing how there's snowstorms in the Midwest, and I'm wandering around in shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops. It doesn't get much better than that. But the second part is the part that's more of a concern here, and that is the brutal humidity and heat in the summertime. Now, it's bad enough that the temperature can get up to 95, maybe even a touch higher during the summer, but what really takes it over the top is the humidity. The humidity is brutal, and it can feel like 105 or higher. It's just a stagnant heat. And to be quite honest with you, I try and avoid doing anything outside during those months, which is really, really difficult because the kids are on summer vacation. So, for me, I'm from the UK. My body is not built for these types of temperatures, and it seems like every single year it starts getting hotter earlier, stays hotter later, and then it's absolutely hotter than it was the year before. So it's like a triple whammy. So I would certainly be remiss if I didn't mention the heat and the humidity as one of the reasons why people have either avoided moving here or actually moved away from here eventually. I can certainly see the benefit of being a snowbird in these circumstances. And then the weather, of course, brings along with it another issue, which are the tropical storms and hurricanes. So during the summer, that humidity rises and builds and builds and builds throughout the day. And then in the late afternoons, you get those thunderstorms rolling, and they can turn into something a little bit more. So hurricane season, you've seen those on the news where those hurricanes are heading for Florida. Everybody panics, boards up their house. Sometimes they abandon town and get out. And we've been very, very lucky in this area of Florida that we haven't seen a direct hit in quite a while. But it's coming one day. We had a tornado touch down almost in our house in Brooksville the other day. It was a couple of blocks over and caused really, really bad damage. So, the weather is great in some cases, not so great in other cases. And so if you want to avoid just stagnant humidity and tropical storms, hurricanes, then this might not be the place for you. Now, two more things that might make you want to avoid being in Wesley Chapel unless you can handle them are the constant construction, which leads into the traffic. Now, like I said, Wesley Chapel's been experiencing a huge amount of growth, and there's new communities popping up seemingly on every single corner. You have communities like Epperson Lagoon, where they have that 7.5-acre lagoon, which is absolutely fantastic. I've visited there a few times. Every time I do, I'm kind of in disbelief still that thing exists. And you have a lot of other new HOA communities popping up as well with really, really impressive amenities. And the great thing about Wesley Chapel is that as they build these homes, they are adding the amenities to support that. So, like I said, restaurants, schools, shopping malls, entertainment venues, and hospitals are being built to keep up with the growing population. But what does that mean? It means that there's always construction going on. And so if you're living in some of these newer communities, be aware that you might be living in a building zone for a little while. Even if you have a home that's a little bit outside of some of these areas where you're looking for a little bit more land, be aware that a developer might come in and buy up the 100-acre parcel behind you and start developing that. And all of a sudden you've gone from being in quiet wilderness to having 400 homes in your backyard. The construction rate in Wesley Chapel is one of the highest in the Tampa Bay area, and every single time I go there, I see more and more construction happening. So I can only imagine how frustrating that must be for some of the residents, and that's the feedback I've got from some people that have lived there. And then of course, what that means is as they are building these roads and widening roads, and they just made a new exit off of I-75, it means that traffic backs up all over the place. Now, Wesley Chapel's not a huge area. In theory, you should be able to drive from one side of town to the other in 15 minutes, but depending on time of day and traffic, it can take 45 minutes. And because it's I-75, which is the main north-south thoroughfare through basically all of Florida, that road is very, very heavily used. And so again, if there's a crash on there or some sort of incident, or even if they're just making road adjustments, that can cause huge tailbacks there. So the traffic and the construction, definitely two things to consider. However, it's all relative, right? So if you're coming from Orlando, the traffic in Wesley Chapel is not going to be anywhere near as bad, or as bad as Tampa for that matter. So it really depends on where you're coming from and what you're used to as far as traffic goes. I myself live in downtown Brooksville at the moment, so compared to Brooksville, the traffic's really, really heavy. And again, construction is the same thing. If you're coming from areas of heavy construction, this might seem light compared to what you're used to. But again, for the Tampa suburbs, it's one of the fastest growing, so there is a lot of construction relative to a lot of the other areas going on there. So I just want to mention it. If it's something something that you want to avoid, you might want to look at some of the more established areas where they're pretty much built out at this point. If you think it's no big deal, be on about your way. Now, another reason why you might want to avoid Wesley Chapel is the distance from the ocean. A big reason that people move to Florida is because of the beaches. And the beaches in Clearwater and St. Pete Beach are spectacular. They're literally the best beaches in the world, let alone just the US. They are the miles and miles of white sand. They are the clear blue sea. They are everything that you imagine on those picture postcard landscapes that you see that you're just dreaming about being close to. The problem is that Wesley Chapel isn't really close to them. It's so far inland and it's such an awkward route to get to these things that there's really no quick way of doing it. You can be taking an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 30, hour and 45 if the traffic's heavy to get to St. Pete and Clearwater Beach. And for a lot of people, that's just too much to do. It really takes half the day to get there and get back and doesn't give you enough time to enjoy actually being there. It becomes a really stressful venture for you to do. So if you're one of those people who really wants to be close to the ocean and take advantage of that and hop over for a sunset after work, then maybe Wesley Chapel's not the place for you because it's just not close enough to the ocean. Another thing that you might want to think about if you want to avoid Wesley Chapel altogether, although this is kind of generic to some other areas of Florida as well, is the high dues that are associated with living in some of the communities there. So there's two sets of fees I want you to think about. There is the homeowners association dues, and then a lot of these neighborhoods as well have a CDD, or Community Development District fee. Now you can look up to see what a CDD is, but essentially it's paid in your tax bill, and it's a bond that is placed on to cover the initial infrastructure that went in to build out the communities. But CDDs can be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year, and homeowners association dues can be $200, $300 a month. So on top of the house payment, that's a considerable expense, especially when home prices have gone up so much recently, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So if you want something where you don't have all of those associated fees, in Wesley Chapel, there's not as many of those areas as there are in, say, Tampa itself, where a lot of the areas are just in Tampa City. They're not necessarily in an HOA community, or even places like Land O'Lakes or Lutz, Spring Hill, Brooksville have a lot more areas where you're not in an HOA. So yeah, there's a great benefit of being in a homeowners association because of all of the amenities and some of the inclusions like cable TV and internet in some cases, but it definitely comes at a cost. And so for those people who are not going to take advantage of the amenities or just simply are being priced out, that's a considerable con. So I did want to put that out there and let you know that there are higher than average fees in a lot of these neighborhoods, and not a lot of neighborhoods that don't have those fees. And then finally, while we're talking about the homes, let's talk about the explosion in the home prices in Wesley Chapel over the last 5 years. Now, of course, all of the Tampa Bay area has seen a considerable rise in home prices, and most of the US has for that reason. But Tampa was one of the fastest exploding markets in the country, and Wesley Chapel was just a heartbeat behind, if not a step ahead. Now, Tampa was the second, I think, fastest growing home appreciation market in the country over the last 5 years, and Wesley Chapel was either just a heartbeat behind or it feels like a step ahead in most cases. The home prices there have gone up, 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 up. And particularly because of the new construction, it's very easy to compare apples to apples. So when you have builders like D.R. Horton building the exact same floor plan in several different areas around Tampa Bay, you can compare the pricing. And in a lot of cases, Wesley Chapel comes out $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, I've even seen as high as $80,000, $90,000 higher for the identical home in Wesley Chapel compared to some of the other suburbs. So the home price explosion there is real, and it doesn't really show any signs of coming down either because of the huge demand for people to move there. So if stretching your dollar further is a consideration for you and you're looking for the best bang for your buck, man, Wesley Chapel might not be it. There are certainly more affordable areas and probably some areas where I would consider it better value for money. All right, guys, so what do you think? Enough to put you off moving to Wesley Chapel? Or do you think, easy to deal with, not a problem for me? I would love to hear your comments below. I think that's a pretty comprehensive list as far as what I could put together in the time allowed here. But if there's any you think I've left out, please be sure to let me know, because I remake these videos and I want to make the list as comprehensive as possible. So I'd love to add yours next time. Like I said, subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell, and if you're thinking about moving to Wesley Chapel and you want to know anything about the resales there, the new home builds with their incentives, or you just want to know more about what it's like to live there, some of the pros and cons and areas that might be of interest to you, be sure to reach out to us and we can help you with that. We would love to talk about that with you, especially if you've watched this video and decided that the cons are really not that bad after all. Anyway guys, that's going to be a wrap for the video. Until next time, please stay safe. I'm Ross Hardy from the Hardy team. It's time to love where you live.